Eric's heart raced as he stepped onto the dock at Lake Haven, the water lapping softly against the wood. Luke, his best friend, laughed beside him, clueless about the spark igniting in Eric's chest. Kevin, Luke's dad, stood waiting, his steady gaze locking with Eric's for a fleeting moment. In that instant, Eric knew this weekend would unravel secrets he wasn't ready to face, threatening the bonds he held dear. The drive to the lake had been a blur of music and banter, Luke's voice filling the car with stories of college pranks and late-night study sessions. Eric, 25 and juggling grad school, had jumped at the chance for a break from deadlines and city noise. Luke, his friend since freshman year, was like a brother, someone who knew Eric's fears, dreams, and quirks. But there was one secret Eric hadn't shared, the quiet pull he felt toward Kevin, Luke's 42-year-old father. It was a fleeting thought, one he'd dismissed as admiration for Kevin's confidence, but it lingered like a shadow. As they parked, Luke slung his bag over his shoulder, grinning. "Ready for a weekend of nothing but fishing and chilling?" "Born ready," Eric replied, forcing a smile, as his eyes darted to Kevin, who was approaching from the dock. Kevin's presence was commanding, not loud, but steady, like the lake itself. "Glad you boys made it," Kevin said, his voice warm but measured. He shook Eric's hand, the grip lingering just a second too long. Eric's pulse quickened, and he pulled away, hoping Luke hadn't noticed. The afternoon passed in a flurry of activity. They unpacked, prepped the boat, and tossed a football by the water's edge. Luke was in high spirits, joking about Eric's terrible aim, but Eric's attention kept drifting to Kevin. The way he moved with ease, guiding the boat or tossing firewood into a pile, stirred something in Eric, something he didn't want to name. As dusk settled, they gathered around a fire pit, the crackle of flames cutting through the quiet. Luke sprawled in a chair, sipping a soda, while Kevin leaned back, his eyes catching the firelight. Eric sat across from him, trying to focus on Luke's stories about their old high school pranks, but Kevin's gaze kept finding him, brief but piercing, like he could see the thoughts Eric was fighting to bury. "Dude, you're zoning out," Luke said, nudging Eric's knee. "What's up? Tired already?" "Nah, just taking it all in," Eric said, his voice tight. He glanced at Kevin, who offered a small, knowing smile that sent a jolt through him. Luke yawned, stretching. "I'm beat. Think I'll crash early. You guys cool?" "Fine by me," Kevin said, his tone casual but his eyes still on Eric. "Night losers," Luke teased, heading toward the house. The silence that followed was heavy, the fire's glow casting long shadows. Eric's stomach churned with nerves and something else, anticipation. He was alone with Kevin, and the air felt charged, like a storm about to break. "So," Kevin said, breaking the quiet, "how's grad school treating you?" His voice was low, almost intimate, pulling Eric in. "It's intense," Eric admitted, staring at the flames to avoid Kevin's gaze. "Lots of pressure. Feels like I'm always one step behind." Kevin nodded, his expression softening. "I get that. I was your age once, trying to figure out who I was, while the world kept pushing. It's not easy." Eric looked up, caught off guard by the vulnerability in Kevin's words. "You ever feel like you're hiding something?" he asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. Kevin's eyes held his, unflinching. "More than you'd think." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Sometimes you bury parts of yourself to keep the peace, but they don't stay buried forever." Eric's breath caught. The words felt like a confession, though he couldn't be sure. His heart pounded as he searched Kevin's face for clarity, but the older man's expression was unreadable now, guarded. "You're close with Luke," Kevin said, shifting the topic. "He talks about you like your family." "He's the best," Eric said, forcing a smile. "We've been through a lot together." "He's lucky to have you," Kevin said, his voice softening. "Someone who gets him. Not everyone does." The compliment landed heavily, stirring something in Eric he couldn't ignore. He wanted to say more, to ask what Kevin meant, but the weight of the moment stopped him. Kevin stood, brushing his hands together. "I'm turning in. Early start tomorrow. Stay out here if you want." Eric nodded, his throat tight. "Night." As Kevin walked away, his silhouette fading into the dark, Eric sat frozen, the fire's warmth doing little to calm the storm inside him. He knew what he felt. The pull toward Kevin was real, undeniable. But Luke was his best friend, and Kevin was complicated. Crossing that line could shatter everything. Yet, as the flames flickered, Eric couldn't shake the feeling that this weekend would change him forever. The fire had died to embers, but Eric's thoughts burned hotter than ever. Last night's conversation with Kevin lingered like a weight on his chest, every word replaying in his mind. He'd barely slept, torn between guilt and a restless pull toward something he couldn't name. By morning, Lake Haven's calm waters did little to ease the tension knotting his stomach. Luke was up early, rigging fishing rods by the dock, his laughter echoing as he called Eric over. "Come on, man. Don't tell me you're still half asleep." Eric forced a grin, grabbing a rod. "Just need coffee. You're way too chipper." Kevin joined them, his presence quiet but steady, like a current beneath the surface. He handed Eric a thermos, their fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent a jolt through Eric, and he looked away, afraid Luke might notice. On the boat, the morning passed in bursts of activity, casting lines, reeling in small catches, Luke's endless banter. Eric tried to focus, but Kevin's every move drew his attention. The way he steered the boat, his calm instructions, the occasional glance that felt too deliberate. Each look chipped away at Eric's resolve, stirring feelings he'd tried to bury for years. After lunch, Luke suggested a hike, but Kevin opted to stay behind to fix a loose board on the dock. "You guys go," he said, his tone casual. "I'll catch up." Luke shrugged. "You're lost, Dad," he nudged Eric. "Ready to get smoked on the trail?" Eric hesitated, then said, "I'll help Kevin. Meet you back here." Luke raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. "Suit yourself. Don't let him bore you." As Luke's footsteps faded, silence settled over the dock. Eric knelt beside Kevin, passing tools as they worked. The air felt thick, charged with unspoken words. Kevin broke the quiet first. "You didn't have to stay." "Wanted to," Eric said, his voice low. He focused on the wood, avoiding Kevin's eyes. "Last night, what you said about hiding. What did you mean?" Kevin paused, setting down his hammer. "I've spent years keeping parts of myself locked away. After my divorce, I thought I'd figured things out, but—" He trailed off, his gaze fixed on the water. "Some truths are harder to face." Eric's heart pounded. "Like what?" Kevin turned to him, his eyes intense. "Like how it feels to be around you." The words hit Eric like a shockwave. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Kevin stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you don't feel it too." Eric's breath caught. I can't. For a moment they stood frozen, the space between them electric. Then Kevin reached out, his hand grazing Eric's arm. The touch was soft, tentative, but it shattered Eric's restraint. He leaned in, and their lips met. A brief, desperate kiss that tasted of risk and truth. They pulled back, both breathing hard. Eric's mind raced with panic and exhilaration. "We can't do this," he whispered, glancing toward the trail. "Luke!" "I know," Kevin said, his voice heavy. "But I can't pretend this isn't real." Before Eric could respond, Luke's voice called from the distance. "You guys done yet?" Eric stepped back, his heart hammering. "We need to be careful," he said, more to himself than Kevin. Kevin nodded, his expression torn. "We will, but it's not going away." As Luke bounded toward them, oblivious, Eric forced a smile, but inside, he was unraveling. The kiss had cracked open a truth he couldn't ignore, and the fear of losing Luke battled with the pull toward Kevin. The weekend was far from over, but Eric knew one thing. There was no going back. The sun hung low over Lake Haven, casting long shadows across the water, but the warmth did nothing to ease the chill in Eric's chest. The kiss with Kevin had left him raw, torn between elation and dread. Luke's laughter as they returned to the boat felt like a blade, each chuckle a reminder of the secret Eric now carried. He avoided Kevin's gaze, focusing on the ripples in the lake, but the weight of their moment pressed harder with every passing second. Luke, oblivious, cast his fishing line, grinning. "You're quiet today, man. What's up? Hung over from Dad's life advice?" Eric forced a laugh, his throat tight. "Something like that." Kevin, steering the boat, stayed silent, but Eric felt his presence like a pulse. Every glance risked exposure, and the fear of Luke noticing gnawed at him. As they docked, Luke suggested a nighttime fishing trip. "Just me and the stars," he said, grabbing his gear. "You two cool hanging back?" Eric's stomach twisted, but he nodded. "Yeah, sure." Kevin's voice was steady. "We'll manage. Catch something worth bragging about." Luke winked. "Don't wait up." As Luke's figure vanished down the path, the air grew heavy. Eric followed Kevin to the fire pit, where they sat in silence, the crackle of flames filling the void. Eric's mind raced. Every instinct screamed to pull away, to protect his friendship with Luke, but Kevin's nearness made that impossible. "You're scared," Kevin said finally, his voice low. Eric nodded, staring at the fire. "This could ruin everything. Luke's my best friend. If he finds out—" "I know," Kevin said, his tone heavy with regret. "But pretending this doesn't exist, it's eating me alive." Eric looked at him, the honesty in Kevin's words cutting through his fear. "I've spent years hiding who I am," Eric admitted, his voice barely audible. "I thought I could keep it buried. But you make it impossible." Before Kevin could respond, footsteps crunched nearby. Luke appeared, his face shadowed, eyes sharp. "Forgot my bait," he said. But his tone was off, suspicious. He glanced between them, lingering on Eric. "Something's weird with you two." Eric's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" Luke's jaw tightened. "You're acting cagey, both of you. What's going on?" "Nothing," Eric said too quickly, his voice cracking. Kevin stepped in, calm but firm. "We're just talking, Luke. Relax." Luke's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me. I'm not stupid." He turned to Eric, his voice rising. "You're my best friend. If something's up, tell me." Eric's chest tightened, guilt and panic colliding. He wanted to confess, to unburden himself, but the words caught in his throat. "Luke, Say it," Luke pressed, stepping closer. "What are you hiding?" Eric's resolve broke. I have feelings for your dad." The silence was deafening. Luke's face twisted. Shock, betrayal, anger. "You're serious?" he spat. "My dad? You're sneaking around behind my back?" "It's not like that," Eric stammered. But Luke cut him off. "Save it. You're supposed to be my brother, man." He turned to Kevin, his voice shaking. "And you? You're okay with this?" Kevin's shoulders slumped. "Luke, I didn't plan this. It just happened." Luke laughed bitterly, grabbing his gear. "I need space. Don't follow me!" He stormed off, leaving Eric and Kevin in the firelight's glow. Eric sank into a chair, his hands trembling. "He hates me." Kevin knelt beside him, his voice soft but steady. "He's hurt. Give him time." "What if he never forgives us?" Eric asked, his eyes burning. Kevin's hand rested on his shoulder, a fleeting comfort. "We'll figure it out. Together." As the fire flickered, Eric felt the weight of his choice. The truth was out, and the cost was already steep. Luke's trust was fractured, and whispers of their secret would soon spread beyond the lake. The path ahead was uncertain, but Eric knew one thing. He couldn't turn back now. The night air at Lake Haven felt colder after Luke's departure. The silence between Eric and Kevin, heavy, with guilt and resolve. Eric sat by the fire pit, staring at the dying embers, replaying Luke's betrayed expression. The truth had slipped out, and now the fragile balance of their weekend was shattered. Kevin sat nearby, his hands clasped tightly, as if holding himself together. "He'll come around," Kevin said, his voice low but firm. "He's angry, but he loves you." Eric shook his head, his chest tight. "I betrayed him. He thinks I'm a liar." "You told the truth," Kevin countered. "That's not betrayal. It's courage." Eric wanted to believe him, but the sting of Luke's words lingered. "What now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kevin leaned closer, his tone steady. "We face it. No more hiding." The next morning, Eric woke to the sound of Luke packing his gear. His friend's face was hard, eyes avoiding Eric's as he slung his bag over his shoulder. "I'm out of here," Luke said curtly. "Need to think." "Luke, please," Eric started. But Luke raised a hand. "Not now. Just don't." He walked to his car and drove off, leaving Eric with a hollow ache. Kevin suggested they head back to the city early, the weekend's promise of escape now tainted. The drive was quiet, each mile stretching the distance between Eric's old life and the uncertain path ahead. Back in the city, whispers began to spread. A friend of Luke's had seen Eric and Kevin together at the lake, their closeness raising eyebrows. By Monday, Eric's phone buzzed with messages, some curious, others judgmental. A classmate texted, "Heard you're with Luke's dad? That's messed up." Eric's stomach churned. He'd spent years dodging questions about his identity, fearing rejection. Now, the scrutiny was relentless. At a coffee shop, he overheard a group of acquaintances murmuring, their words sharp, "It's weird, right? He's so much older." The judgment stung, but Eric refused to let it define him. Kevin faced his own fallout. A colleague at his construction firm, overhearing gossip, pulled him aside. "This true? You're with some kid?" Kevin's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. "It's not your business," he said, walking away. Later, he told Eric his sister had called, her voice cold. "You're throwing away your family for this?" Desperate for support, Eric found a local LGBTQ community center. At a meeting, he shared his story, his voice shaking as he described the kiss, Luke's anger, and the growing isolation. A facilitator, Mia, listened intently. "You're not alone," she said. "This is your truth. Own it." Her words sparked something in Eric, a flicker of strength. Kevin joined him at the next meeting, their hands brushing as they sat side by side. The group's acceptance was a lifeline, but the outside world remained harsh. Eric's advisor at grad school pulled him aside, warning him about distractions affecting his studies. Eric nodded, but inside, he burned with defiance. He wasn't just fighting for Kevin, he was fighting for himself. One evening, Kevin invited Eric to dinner, just the two of them. They sat at a small diner, the hum of conversation around them a shield against prying eyes. "I'm done hiding," Kevin said, his voice resolute. "I want this. Us. But only if you're ready." Eric's heart raced. "I'm scared," he admitted. "But I want it too." Kevin reached across the table, squeezing Eric's hand briefly. "Then we do this together, no matter what." The path wasn't easy. Eric lost a few friends, their silence louder than words. Kevin's family ties strained, his sister refusing to speak to him. But each challenge forged their bond stronger. At the community center, they found allies who celebrated their courage, offering a space to breathe. Eric began to see himself not as a traitor, but as someone daring to live authentically. As weeks passed, the initial sting of rejection dulled. Eric and Kevin leaned on each other, their connection a quiet rebellion against the world's judgment. But one question lingered. Would Luke ever forgive them? The answer lay beyond the horizon, but Eric held on to hope, knowing that truth, however painful, was the only way forward. Eric stood by the city park's edge, the late afternoon sun filtering through the trees. Months had passed since the weekend at Lake Haven, but the sting of Luke's departure still lingered. Eric and Kevin had fought through whispers, judgment, and fractured ties, building something real amid the chaos. Now a text from Luke, "We need to talk," sat heavy on Eric's phone, pulling him back to the moment everything broke. He arrived at a quiet bar where Luke waited, nursing a beer. Luke's posture was stiff, his eyes guarded but softer than before. Eric slid into the booth, heart pounding. "Thanks for reaching out," he said cautiously. Luke nodded, staring at his drink. "Took me a while. I was pissed, man. You and Dad. It felt like a betrayal." Eric swallowed hard. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened." Luke's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. "I know. I saw how you were at the lake. Different. Like you were carrying something heavy. I just didn't get it then." The words hung between them, raw and honest. Eric braced for more anger, but Luke's voice softened. "Dad's happier now. I see it. He's not hiding anymore, and neither are you. That's something." Eric's chest loosened, hope flickering. "You're not mad anymore." "Not mad," Luke said, exhaling. "Confused, maybe, but you're still my best friend. I don't want to lose that." Eric nodded, relief washing over him. "I don't either." They talked for hours, rebuilding what had cracked. Luke admitted his anger came from fear. Fear of losing his dad, his friend, his sense of normal. Eric shared his own struggle, the years spent burying his identity, the terror of being seen. By the time they parted, a fragile trust had taken root, a promise to move forward. Kevin waited at their apartment, a small place they'd rented together, a fresh start. Eric told him about the conversation, and Kevin's shoulders relaxed, a weight lifting. "He's a good kid," Kevin said. "He just needed time." Eric smiled, squeezing Kevin's hand, like we did. Their life together wasn't perfect. Some of Kevin's family still kept their distance, their calls unanswered. Eric faced occasional side eyes from classmates, but the LGBTQ+ community center remained a refuge. Mia, the facilitator, became a friend, her encouragement a reminder that their fight was shared by many. At a group meeting, Eric spoke up, his voice steadier now. "I thought I'd lose everything," he said, "but I found myself instead." The city's rhythm became their backdrop. Shared dinners, late-night talks, quiet moments by the park. One evening, as they walked by the river, Kevin stopped, his hand firm in Eric's. "I never thought I'd get this, a second chance," he said. "You gave me that." Eric's throat tightened. "You gave me the courage to stop hiding." Their bond grew stronger, built on honesty and resilience. Luke started visiting, at first hesitant, then with ease, joining them for game nights or coffee runs. His acceptance wasn't just tolerance, it was a bridge rebuilt, stronger for its scars. Eric saw it in the way Luke joked with Kevin, the way he nudged Eric like old times. One night, as they hosted a small gathering at their apartment, Luke raised a glass, his grin wide, "To family, however it looks." The room, filled with new friends from the community center and a few old ones who'd come around, erupted in cheers. Eric met Kevin's eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. The journey hadn't been easy. They'd faced rejection, doubt, and the ache of secrets exposed. But standing together, surrounded by those who mattered, Eric knew it was worth it. Lake Haven had been the spark, but this life of truth and love, was the fire. As he looked at Kevin, then at Luke, Eric felt a certainty settle in his bones. They'd built something unbreakable, and the future, however uncertain, was theirs to shape. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. More stories are coming that will move you, inspire you, and challenge the way you see your own journey. Every story matters, and each one brings us closer to who we are meant to become.